Welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Mary and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation, and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people with extraordinary stories full of passion and knowledge. Our aim is to share this sparkle with you and encourage you to go beyond your dreams. If you feel that you're on the right place, please give us a like and follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Instagram, and TikTok. All your support is important for us so we can carry on with this great project and keep bringing value to you. Always believe in yourself, dreamers, and hopefully you enjoy the next episode. Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Mary and Richard. Today, our guest is an exceptional woman with a great vision that inspired her to transform a family home in a luxurious street.
What a privilege it is to be in Hempstead House. I've had the privilege to stay here quite a few times, and I can tell you that the welcome you get when you arrive is incredible. The food here is amazing. The rooms are absolutely lovely, and it's just a privilege to be here. And we've got a great privilege to have Mandy with us this morning, who's going to share with us the story of Hempstead House and how she came to live here and it became a hotel. So, Mandy, please, first of all, thank you very much for welcoming us this morning. Thank you for being a great host, and we look forward to hearing your story. How did it all start?
My pleasure. Good morning, both, and good morning to everyone. It's a story I've told many times throughout my life. It's very long, so I will try and give you the shortened version. I started off my professional career as a teacher, a secondary school teacher, teaching English and drama before I got married. I taught in a couple of places in Nottingham and down in Swindon in the West Country. When I got married, I moved to Kent, and I was teaching here also. I became pregnant with my first child in 1980 and decided that I didn't want to bring up children whilst working full time. I didn't want somebody else looking after my children. So I decided that I would resign before my first one was born, and wasn't really sure what I was going to do. But I also knew that I have very strong work ethic, and I couldn't be the sort of mum who just went to coffee mornings and took my child to toddler group and sat around for the rest of the day. It's not me at all. But having not really planned what I was going to do, we were living at the time in a converted pub. We didn't convert it; it was already done when we bought the house. But one day, through the door, dropped a database questionnaire from the tourist board, saying if you've got accommodation to let, fill in this form, send it back to us, and we'll put you on our database. So I thought, seems like a good idea. We had 4 bedrooms. We were only using 2, so we had 2 spare. And I filled in the form, didn't think really too much of it, except I had one of those flippy calendars by the wall phone then, as you had. And I put some prices on there. And a couple of months later, my husband took a call one evening from a couple who said, can you tell me how much your room is for the night? So he said, I think I better pass you over to my wife. So I took the call, quickly looked at the prices that I'd jotted down on this calendar, quoted a price, and they said, yes, lovely, thank you very much. Can we come for the weekend, Friday and Saturday night? Wow. So I said, yes, thank you very much. Didn't really know what to do with it. Took their name, that was about it. And scribbled it on this calendar, and that was that. And then when I put the phone down, I thought, oh my goodness me, the weekend that they're coming, and I've agreed to offer them bed and breakfast and dinner, we're going away.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, Of course, I hadn't even taken their phone number, so I couldn't even get back to them. So they arrived on the Friday night, and we sat in our quite big kitchen round our breakfast bar, and I cooked a nice dinner for them. And I said, here's your dinner. I'm really sorry, but actually we're going away for the weekend. But I have left your breakfast in the fridge. Your dinner for tomorrow night is all prepared, and your breakfast for Sunday morning. And by the way, could you feed the sheep?
Fantastic. Great.
Well, they dined out on this story for many years to come. And they did indeed feed the sheep. And they came back every year, and they even came here to Hempstead House when we moved here to also stay here. Sadly, now they've both passed away, but it was a long and very happy relationship that we had with them. So that really started my foray into bed and breakfast. And because I liked cooking dinner, I always offered dinner to people as well. And we had a nice dining room, and we would sit and eat with our guests. Sometimes if we knew them, or they'd been before, or they'd stayed for a couple of nights, they'd sit in the kitchen with us, with the dog and the children, or the child then. And I thought, well, this is lovely. And that year that the following year, I should say, we had a smattering of guests. The following year was the year of the Open Golf Championship in Sandwich.
Wow.
And we lived 3 miles away from Sandwich. So I was absolutely inundated with people wanting to stay. And whereas we might have had, a few people at the weekends and maybe 1 or 2 people during the week, it was very much a sort of hobby. That particular week, we let every single room, every single night. We moved out of our bedroom. I moved my son out of his bedroom. We all slept on the floor in one of our little sitting rooms.
Wow.
And we let 4 bedrooms for 7 nights. And at the end of the week, I had one of those Sainsbury's margarine cartons. They didn't do them anymore. They're 2 kilograms, big square ones. And of course, everything was cash in those days. And I just put all the cash into this Sainsbury's margarine carton. And I sat there at the end of the week when everyone had gone, absolutely exhausted. But I was counting all the money. And I thought, this is all right. I've had real fun. And look, we've got all this money.
Yeah.
So I thought, I think I ought to do, make a bit more effort and do this a bit more. So we started looking at where we could advertise, and there was, I can't remember what the company was called. I suppose you would now say it was the equivalent of an agency.
Okay.
But it worked on a voucher system, and it was called Country Retreats or something like that. And you subscribed to them, and they sent you people with vouchers. So the people didn't pay, the guests didn't pay. You submitted these vouchers at the end of the week or the end of the month, and then you got your check, of course, in those days. So I thought, this is good. And we started getting a lot more people coming. The prices weren't that good, but the people were coming in. And so we continued to do that. We were there for another 3 years. And then my husband, who then worked in Canterbury, his office moved up here to Sittingbourne.
Okay.
And he travelled for a while. But of course, we were half an hour the other side of Canterbury. So it was quite a journey. So he said, look, I really think we should try and move closer to where I'm in the office. So he said, and I think we should look for somewhere with 2 ensuite bedrooms that we can let, because in the house where we were, we didn't have ensuite bedrooms. So we had 1 shower room downstairs and a family bathroom upstairs. So I was constantly rushing in there with the children at 6 o'clock in the morning, cleaning it and leaving it then for the guests to use afterwards, so that we were out of the way and it was more comfortable for them. But of course, that was in the days when non-ensuite bedrooms were acceptable, which of course they're not now. So we started looking, and at the same time my parents decided that they would take early retirement. And my husband came up with the idea that, well, why don't we combine resources, and your parents come and live, we buy somewhere with an annex or a cottage or something like that. My parents were only in their 60s, so they were not elderly. So that they can come down and be with us. So that's what we did. Anyway, we looked for 2 years and we couldn't find the right place. Sure. And then one day we found that Hempstead House was on the market. It was a 6-bedroom family house. And we thought we'll go and look at it. And the lady who owned it at the time was actually away, and it was a Sunday. And we drove up the drive and we peered in all the windows and decided absolutely this was the place that we wanted.
Perfect.
It had an annex, and it obviously had the scope and the accommodation. It had 2 ensuite bedrooms on the top floor, which was the old nursery quarters. And so the following day, without even setting foot across the doorstep, we put in an offer. Anyway, long story, the offer was accepted. The lady who owned it then came back and said, oh, actually, I've forgotten that there's we call it the coach house now. It was a stable building that is part of the offer on the plans. And I didn't want to include that, so I want another 50,000 from you.
Wow.
So we were like, oh, actually, no, I'm not really happy with that. So we said, no, we're not going to do that because you've offered it lock, stock and barrel. You can't come back now and say... Anyway, she was absolutely insistent, so we had to do it.
Wow.
We still had our house in Ash at the time. Fortunately, my parents were able to put some money in for us because they had sold their house in Somerset. They were living with us in Ash.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to have a bridging loan. But we unfortunately had the two houses for 16 months.
Wow.
So it was a very, very difficult time.
Puts a lot of strain on them.
A lot of strain on the family, a lot of strain on the finances, and a lot of strain on us physically travelling, because my son was at school in Canterbury by then. Okay. And the house here needed an awful lot doing to it. And I had another child.
Wow.
So it was a really busy time. But, like most things, you manage it and it makes you a bit stronger because you've done it. And we decorated here. I then, during that time, got pregnant again. So potentially we were having a third, well, obviously we had a third child. And we were decorating here. And I do remember one occasion, which was probably very foolish thinking about it, when I was on a stepladder, a three-tier stepladder, which was balanced partly on the staircase and partly on 2 breeze blocks and a stack of Homes and Gardens. I was 8 months pregnant and I was wallpapering from the top of the second floor all the way down. But,
most people would be sitting in the chair.
I didn't fall off and the baby was fine and I was fine and everything was okay. So eventually we sold the house in Ash. We moved here. We decided that the annex as such was not actually suitable for my parents to live in. It wasn't nice enough. So they occupied one of the ensuite bedrooms on the top floor. So we started by letting one of the rooms on the top floor and the annex, which we let as a separate flat. So we were bringing in some money.
Yeah.
All seemed fine. And gradually over time, the business started to build up. And whereas when we were in Ash, we only ever had a tourist trade, a leisure trade, people coming for the weekends or people coming, for a short break to explore the countryside. Whereas here, because we were on the main road and we were close to an industrial town, we started picking up a corporate trade.
Yeah, of course.
Which was great fun because, as you've already said, Richard, when you are travelling for business, it's so nice to have a home from home.
Oh, it's perfect. It's exactly what you need.
Yeah. And you can stay in the poshest of hotels, but if you're just a room number and not a face, and people don't address you by name and they don't stop and have a chat with you, and you have dinner on your own, you have breakfast on your own, and it's all a bit soulless.
It is, yeah. You want someone to be a bit chatty with you. And
exactly.
So you just feel comfortable. It's all about feeling comfortable when you stay away.
Very much so. And so we became not hugely popular because we didn't have lots and lots and lots of people, because it doesn't suit everybody to come to what was effectively a family home with a couple of rooms to let. But we had some regular guests who would eat with us every day. And in fact, I saw one of them just last year, not that many months ago, who came and he said, I came here for the first time 29 years ago.
Wow.
And he said, I sat round your dinner table and I helped your son do his maths homework.
Fantastic.
This is what I wanted. What age we're talking about? 1990s?
We came here in 1990.
Okay.
And I've been here 34 years.
Okay.
So that was in the very early days of us being here. And it was great fun. My parents used to join in. I cooked dinner every night for the guests and we sat and we ate together.
It's interesting that you actually spent time with your guests. It wasn't like you and your family was...
No.
Hiding away. So many people hide away and they just sort of, there's your room, carry on. And just
No. We were very integrated. And the children too were very integrated with the guests because we lived here as a family. the rooms that we were letting, it was only 2 rooms. And why wouldn't you just include people in your family life? It made it easier for me. People accepted that sometimes, if I had to rush off because there was a child upstairs who was in the bath and needed the hair washing, then they didn't mind if they waited 10 minutes for their dinner, because that's what you had to do. So anyway, wind the clock forwards, time went on, we got busier. And so we thought, actually 2 rooms is not really enough. So what we'll do is we'll convert the annex into 5 extra rooms.
Wow.
So it had 2 rooms upstairs, and it had, plus a bathroom, and it had 2 big rooms downstairs. So we converted it into 5 extra bedrooms. So we now had 7 rooms.
Wow.
But I was still doing everything myself. So I was still cleaning bedrooms. My mum helped with the laundry. I was still doing all the cooking, all the washing up. And it was starting to get quite demanding, because by that time I had 4 children. I had another one. And I do remember my mother's infinite words of wisdom to me when I told her I was pregnant with the 4th child. And she said, "Are you running a business or a creche?"
A little bit of both, Mum.
I thought, perhaps I better stop now. So yes, 4 children, a husband who, bless his heart, was lovely, but actually didn't really understand what it took to look after a family and run a business. And, he went to work, he came home, he had his dinner ready for him, and he would have a pint of beer with the guests when they came in. He thought that was his contribution.
Did he enjoy that?
He loved it. Yeah, he absolutely loved it.
I think sometimes people would come home and they go,
"Oh no, exactly." No, he loved it. We're both, I think, very sociable people, and we enjoyed the interaction. We like talking to people, and as you say, people make the world go round, don't they? And you learn so much, and it's fascinating learning about people's lives and their families and what they do and such like. So, yeah, great fun, but also very demanding.
I can imagine.
And I thought, do you know what? I think I need a little bit of help. So one day at school, at my girls' school, there was a lovely grandma who used to take her grandson to school, and we chatted a lot. And she said to me, if ever your mum needs any help doing the laundry, she said, I'm always happy to help. So she started coming in for a couple of hours a day to help with all the linen and the pressing and such like. Ended up becoming a full-time member of staff until she retired, which was lovely. And then I started having a lady who came in to wash up in the evenings, because we had graduated from having sort of 1 or 2 guests in the evenings to sometimes having, And whereas we would entertain our 1 or 2 guests in our breakfast room, which was next to the kitchen, we'd now started doing a more formal dinner service in our main dining room. So we would sit with our guests and I would serve dinner. And of course, the guests were interested to know not only about the local area, about the business and ourselves, and the guests coming from abroad, guests coming from all over the country. And so we'd sit and we'd chat to them, and it was lovely. And then suddenly you'd find it was 11:30 at night, and you'd got to go in the kitchen and do all the washing up. And I'd have to get up in the night with a child, and I'd have to get up again at 6 o'clock in the morning to do breakfast. So very demanding, very tiring. And I thought, this is just getting a little bit too much now. Added to that was the fact that whilst guests loved having dinner all together in our dining room, breakfast was a little bit more tricky.
Everyone gets up at different times together.
Well, everyone gets up at different times, but also people are not so sociable at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning as they are at 7, 8 o'clock at night.
You give them 3 or 4 coffees and they wake up eventually.
Yeah, but if you're sitting that close to somebody for breakfast, you can't not say good morning, and you can't not really say anything. Whereas actually, you probably just want to read the paper in those days, or, do your own thing, head down, have your breakfast and go. So it started becoming a little bit more tricky trying to separate people out at breakfast time. So we had the bright idea that we'd build a restaurant and take on a chef.
Wow.
So that
was a big step as well.
That was a big step. So that was in 1997. And we started building the restaurant and completed it in 1998. So hence...
Is that the Lakes restaurant?
That's the Lakes restaurant. It wasn't called Lakes restaurant at the time because there's a bit of a backstory to that as well, but it was just called the restaurant, the Hempstead House restaurant. Yeah. So I thought all my prayers were answered, and we took on a French chef called Christophe. And young lad, 24 I think he was, and I thought all my prayers were answered. And I was on that armchair there up on cloud 9 when he came for the first day, and he said, "What would you like for dinner tonight?"
Ooh, hello.
And I'm like, God, I can put children to bed, I can sit down, I don't have to wash up no, I did have to wash up because I was still doing the washing up at that point, but I don't have the pressure every day of working out a menu. My mum used to do the shopping for me and chop the vegetables and all of those things that, went with serving dinner in the evening. So I thought all my prayers were answered. Anyway, time went on, and the reality of taking on a chef and all that entailed. And I was still actually doing the waitressing and doing the washing up.
So was he quite demanding as well because he was a chef?
Well, it turned out that he was stealing from us.
No.
So my first experience of having a chef was not that great. No. So I was not careful about cash. I trusted people. I didn't think that somebody would start putting their hands in the till and take money. Anyway, that all came to be. It all ended rather nastily. We had to get CCTV footage. We decided not to go with the prosecution because it's just, so we got rid of him. Yeah. Anyway, wind the clock forwards again. Time went on. And
did you carry on then doing the cooking then?
No. We took on another chef and then another chef and then another chef and and if I went into all the detail, we'd be here until about 8 o'clock tonight. So we got busier and busier, and then people started saying, "Can we have a function at Hempstead House? Because that would actually be really nice." And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't see why not." And so we started doing some smaller parties in our dining room where we used to serve breakfast and dinner. And I catered for those because it was actually a friend who asked me. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'd quite like to do that. So that was fun. And then we started having a demand for weddings. And the first inquiry literally came from a lady who knocked on my front door and said, "Will you do my son's wedding?" And I said, "Well, I'll give it a go." And that was that. Wow. And so the wedding business started to take off. Then what happened was we were finding that we were doing a wedding every Saturday in the restaurant, and we had made provisions for that when we built it. So we have a dance floor in the middle of the restaurant, and it could be geared up for function use. Yeah. But of course, Saturday nights are your key restaurant nights.
Absolutely.
And you can't then run a restaurant service if you're doing a wedding. So we thought, well, actually, perhaps we should build a function suite.
Wow.
So hence in 2002, we started plans for a function suite. And whereas the restaurant and we built 6 extra bedrooms on top of the restaurant when we built it as well. So at this particular time, then we had 7 plus 6, which I believe is 13 bedrooms. And so when we built the restaurant, we took on a loan of $500,000, which at the time I thought, my goodness me, that is just so scary. But we did it, and I became quite accustomed to the repayments, and we were managing it fine, and I wasn't quite so scared about it. We'd taken on a bookkeeper to help me with accounting, and we had an accountant for the end of the year. So it was all sort of rolling along quite nicely. The function suite and another 8 bedrooms, the cost on that was $2.1 million.
Wow.
And I thought, oh dear. And I thought, well, that's an awful lot of money. But I thought, well, no, I think we can do it. And we did a business plan, which my husband helped with. And we went to back to the Halifax Bank, who'd always been our mortgage lender. And we said, oh, actually, now we'd like to borrow $2.1 million. And they went, oof.
Sharp and take a breath.
I think so.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So hospitality is notoriously a very risky business.
Because obviously it comes and goes, doesn't it?
It does. And we'd got a good trading record, but we'd got no financial backing.
No.
So they were like, oh, no, I think we'll pull out of that one.
Wow.
So one by one, we went to all of the big high street banks, and they all turned around and went, oof, no thanks, no, that's a bit scary. Gosh. So we thought, well, what are we going to do now? Because we've got to have this money if we're going to do the extension.
Yeah.
Anyway, my husband at the time, who's an agricultural surveyor, was working with a bank called Clydesdale Bank, Scottish bank, now being taken over by Virgin Money.
Yeah.
And he was dealing with them in terms of lending for his clients, etc., etc. And he went to them and said, look, this is our proposal, this is our business plan, what do you think? And the guy that he was liaising with said, well, look, I'll take it up to credit and I'll let you know. Came back and they said yes.
Wow, fantastic.
So we moved our lending to Clydesdale Bank. And very interestingly, the following year, after we'd done the development and things were going well, one by one, all the high street banks came back to us and said, oh, we'll take over your loan now.
Yeah, I bet they did.
And we said, no, thanks. So we've stuck with them.
That's the thing, is that you build the relationship, and once you build a relationship, then you don't want to, from a business point of view, that loyalty, if you can get it, is great.
And that's always been a huge belief of mine in business, is loyalty to guests, loyalty to staff, and loyalty to suppliers. And unless they do something that upsets you, or is against your principles, or is not right for the business, then you stick with them, and generally speaking, you'll get the support.
Because that partnership is so important, isn't it?
And they help in a moment that you really needed someone to help, not once you show already the figures, and that's
very much so.
That's
very
great.
Much so. So we've stuck with Clydesdale Bank, and we're still with them. It's now Virgin Money. Excuse me. So the function suite became a success, and we started doing weddings, and then of course civil ceremonies came into being. In 2006. We were Kent's most popular wedding venue.
Wow.
So that was quite an accolade. And in 2007, we did 88 weddings.
Wow.
So you can imagine how the wedding business was.
So that was 10 years almost, or just less, from when you had your first knock on the door to being the top wedding venue in Kent. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What
and if I'm very honest with you, we didn't have to work at that in terms of advertising. It was all word of mouth.
Yeah. And that goes to show what a great experience it was.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that became a great success. We had the extra bedrooms, and everything was going quite nicely. The only thing that we found was that unless we had weddings at the weekends, we weren't really picking up much of a leisure trade. So we had a very strong corporate trade. We had a very strong weddings trade. We didn't have a particularly strong leisure trade.
Just tourists, just coming past and popping by.
Yes, but we didn't have people who wanted to come and stay here as a destination. I want to go to Hempstead House Hotel because I want to spend a couple of days there relaxing and enjoying the facilities and services.
Yeah.
So I thought, what's missing? What are we missing? What are we not providing that other hotels are providing? And then it dawned on me that, of course, we didn't have a spa.
Yeah, so it's like swimming. You didn't have a swimming pool at that point?
We had an outdoor pool, which, of course, was seasonal.
Yeah,
and it wasn't really geared up for guest use. It was geared up for family use. We had a little changing room, but it wasn't separated out, so it wasn't geared up for guest use. Guests did used to use it in the summer, but it was very much a family atmosphere. It was a lovely pool, but it was very much really for the family.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, where the outdoor pool is, we could build an indoor pool, and then we could put other facilities added to that. So this was in 2006.
Okay.
So I approached the same architect, the same builders, and said, look, this is what I want to do. Can you, start proceedings for that? Which they said, yeah, sure. And that sort of rolled into 2007, when, of course, the talk of the big 2008 recession
It's just about to start.
was very, very up and coming and very, very in everybody's minds.
Yeah.
And I had friends at the time who said to me, Mandy, this is not a sensible time to be building a luxury item. You know, we're about to hit a big recession and people are not going to have the money. They're not going to want to spend on coming to a spa hotel. I think you should stop. I think you should put it on hold.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big.
So
big
I sort of thought about it. And at the same time, my husband said to me, if that's what you're doing, I'm not going to be a part of it because it's too much of a risk.
Wow.
So I sort of thought, God, I'm really on my own here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a lot of sleepless nights, but I decided to go ahead with it. And I have to say that I probably didn't sleep a proper night for the whole of the 9 months that I was building that.
Because it is a big project. So when you start
It was a big project.
there's a lot of work involved. Then it takes time. It takes time, the planning to get everything sorted, then the starting. And also there's this disruption as well to the hotel while the work's going on as well,
Exactly.
which also has an impact, I guess, on the income to the hotel at that
Very
particular
much
point.
so. Very much so, especially for things like weddings and functions where people come and expect the atmosphere and the environment to be relaxing and enjoyable. They don't want to see a building site.
No, that's right.
So we had to manage that very carefully. We did lose some bookings. It was another £2 million project, and I felt very, very scared of the future. But I knew that it was the right thing to do, because
Can I interrupt you here to ask what drive you exactly through that time? And obviously, even your husband told you that he felt that it's not right. What was that?
I
Flame,
suppose
inspiration,
it was my
vision?
determination, my stubbornness, and my belief that I'd got it right.
Yeah, yeah. You were thinking big. That's the thing. You've got to think big sometimes to get to the next stage.
Somebody once said to me in the very early days of running a business here that a business can never stand still.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if it doesn't move forwards, it moves backwards.
It does, yeah.
And I could feel that there was something missing.
Yeah.
And that our wedding trade was not what it used to be, because civil ceremonies had, well, they're still very popular, but people were looking at wedding venues, were setting up just specific wedding venues. Yeah. People were doing weddings in pubs, in open fields, in
gardens,
everywhere.
Yeah,
and so our wedding business was retracting, and I could feel that we needed to boost the hotel income with a leisure business, and we weren't going to do it unless we had the facilities. So that drove me on. It was a very, very difficult time, and fortunately, I don't suffer with stress very much, but I was having panic attacks in the night. It was affecting me, but I was determined. Yeah. I was quite determined to carry on. So in 2008, we completed the extension, and I was introduced to a guy who worked for the David Lloyd Group. Wow. Because I felt that I needed help. I knew nothing about spas. I knew nothing about gyms. I knew nothing about the fitness world. And I felt that I needed some help.
The right person to come along to give you that.
So I met this guy. He was a similar age to me and very knowledgeable. Not really happy at David Lloyd, but it was where he'd worked for some considerable time. But he wanted to branch out into something like I was potentially going to be offering. So we agreed that he would come on board as a consultant, and that he would help me maybe for starting off with 1 day a month to maybe 1 day a week, and then when we opened, he would come full time. So it worked very well, lovely guy, and he was very helpful. And one of the things he did was to introduce me to various hotels of our sort of calibre where they had similar spa outlets.
Yeah.
And one of those was Eastwell Manor.
Okay.
And when we went to Eastwell Manor, we went primarily because they had this wonderful whizzy machine called a power plate machine. And
what does that do?
Well, you stand on it and it vibrates, and it basically accentuates the exercise that you're doing.
Oh,
So
okay.
women love it,
Right.
because it's low output for big game.
Yes.
Very expensive, but he said, I really think these are, unique. They're new on the market, and I really think it's something we should have. So we went to see this, and during our visit, we were met by this lovely 26-year-old young man called Mike, who came in on his day off to show us around.
Wow.
And didn't just show us the power plate machine, spent 2.5 hours showing my mum and I and this other guy whose name, I think it was Ben, but I can't remember, around the whole facilities. And when we left, I thought, if I was coming as a customer, if I was coming as a guest, and Mike had shown me around, I'd have signed on the dotted line.
Absolutely.
What a lovely guy.
What a charming man.
Smashing man.
Yeah, perfect.
So I took his details, we kept in touch, and I said, do you mind if I ask you questions? He said, no, absolutely fine. The building project went on, and we got near to completion. And the consultant that I'd been using, whose name I think was Ben, came to see me in the office one day and knocked on the door, and I could tell there was something not right. And he sat down and he said, Mandy, I've got some bad news. He said, I am not going to be able to come and join you full time when you open. He said, 2 reasons. One is my brother's developed cancer and is on end-of-life care.
Wow.
And the other is that my partner's daughter is expecting a child, and she wants to be very much involved in the care of the child to help the family out. And with those 2 commitments, I'm just not going to be able to come full time. Wow. So I said I fully understood and thanked him very much, and for all his time. He said he would stay on and advise me, do whatever he could, and I thanked him, and we parted our ways. And I went to bed that night and sort of thought,
I need to find someone.
What am I going to do? And I remembered Mike.
Absolutely.
And I sent a completely off-the-wall email to Mike and said, if it was on offer, would you be interested? And he came back and said, absolutely.
Wow.
And the rest is history. So that was in the January. The spa had opened in the spa was due to open in the October. And he said, let's keep it confidential, because I obviously want to work at Eastwell, but I want to give them, a good notice term. I want to give them at least 3 months notice term. I said, well, that's perfect, because the guy who was going to come on board and join me now can't. So if we look to you coming on board June, July time, full time, then we can complete the project together and we can open together. Yeah. So that was all set in stone, and we kept it very confidential. We had several meetings, and then sadly Mike's grandfather died in the June when he was due to join me. So he didn't actually join me for another month, but he then came on board in July, and we opened the spa in October. We had a grand opening. We had 90 members before we actually opened.
Amazing. That's
who'd
good.
invested in us.
Oh, wow.
And we opened with flying colours, a press release and everything else. So we're now 2008. And Mike is leisure manager, and everything's going really well. And then 2009 on Valentine's Day, Mike is driving to work on an early morning shift and has a serious car accident.
Wow.
He's lucky to have survived it. Wow. His car, icy roads, his car hit a curb, spiraled over several times and ended up upside down in a hedgerow.
Wow. Wow.
And if it hadn't been for a post office van driving past shortly afterwards, I'm not sure what would have happened. Yeah. He tried to climb out of the car, and in doing so, lacerated his leg on the broken window, broke his pelvis, did all sorts of damage to his knee. Anyway, he was off work then for 3 months, so in hospital for quite some time. And I think that's when Mike and I's relationship became not just a business relationship, it became a very personal relationship. Really, and it always has been since then. Yeah. So I always say, we're Basil and Sybil to each other, but I always say he's like a son to me because he's the same age as my son. So
he's a delight as well, isn't he?
He is an absolute delight, and we have worked together. I can honestly say without a crossword for 16 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's been a very, very special relationship.
I mean, to work in hospitality and to have a man like him around as well, because he's just got a personable nature that every guest would like. So if you got something, you can imagine if you went to Mike, he would sort it out, and he's got a lovely way with him. So
he's absolutely
great asset.
Yeah.
Great asset.
One of the nicest men I've ever met, and one of the most capable too. And we've grown together over the years, which has been very, very special for both of us, I think. And he's learnt things that he wouldn't have otherwise perhaps learnt. He's taken on responsibilities that I've asked him to and he's been nervous about, but he's taken them on with pride. And I can't remember exactly when it was, but I was at a music concert of one of my daughters once at Ashford School. And I suddenly had this bright idea that I wanted Mike to be GM, not just leisure manager anymore. And so I sent him this long, long message, you know, doing what mothers never should do when they're at a school concert, on their phones, sending text messages, as it was then, no WhatsApp. And I wrote this long, 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 long message saying, this is what I want. I want it for you. I want it for me. I want it for the business. But you must promise me faithfully one thing, and that is that you will always put your family first.
Yeah, it's really important.
And that whatever happens work-wise, your family will always be your priority.
Yeah, that's a key balance.
Honestly, this is unbelievable that there are entrepreneurs like you that going to tell this to
Well, to me,
staff.
I grew up working 16, 17 hours a day with my children on board, 7 days a week, no, couldn't take holidays. It was just all consuming for 10 years. Now, my children are very magnanimous and they tell me that it was never a problem for them because they had my parents here. I was always physically here. So if they needed me, I was here, but I was always working. So they're I suppose they appease my guilt by telling me that actually it wasn't a problem for them growing up. But for me, when you're a mum, you're guilty anyway, guilty of everything, you can never do everything right. So for me, it was a big guilt that I harboured and I didn't want Mike to do the same.
No,
so yes, so we have worked alongside each other, with each other, we've laughed together, we've cried together, but we are the greatest of friends, and I always say to him, I love him to bits.
It's amazing because this is something a lot of entrepreneurs will do. You literally, you have an idea, and when you've got that idea, you want to get it out. It's like if you wake up in the middle of the night, you have an idea. You turn the light on, you write it down, and you make a note. It's like you're out to the concert and you're thinking, I'm just going to do it now and just get it done.
And I still do the same thing. And I swim every morning in the pool, and it's my sort of thinking time. And every morning when Mike comes in and I say, he says, you've been in your think tank again, haven't you?
Very important.
So yeah, good. So Spa was built, very successful. We're now at our membership capacity. It is probably the strongest area of the business. It's hugely popular with members, with residents, with spa days. So it was the right decision. It was the right decision.
So you've got, obviously with the spa, you've got the swimming pool.
Yes.
You've got facility for doing, I guess, like aerobics.
We've got swimming pool, jacuzzi, hydrotherapy pool, sauna, steam room, fitness studio, gym and beauty suite.
Wow.
Yeah, and we added 7 extra bedrooms.
So does that include hairdressing as well?
No, not hairdressing. No.
Okay,
We started off by doing hairdressing and makeup, but we now just do beauty treatments.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
So for the ladies of leisure, it's a perfect place to come in the week.
It's a perfect place to come. Absolutely.
Is it busy in the week as well as the weekends?
It is busy in the week. We have a lot of spa days who come during the week, and members, of course, use it during the week as well.
So we can see that Saturday morning is so busy here.
Busy.
Once you come on the car park.
We do a lot of classes, which our members love. Our demographic is, dare I say it? Yes, I dare, because it's much younger than me, but it's ladies of a certain age who don't want to go to a sweaty socks gym.
Yeah.
It's very female orientated. We keep the facilities spotlessly clean. There's no sort of that. We do have male members, but they're considerate. They're not, they're not sort of heaving weights and sweating buckets in front of ladies who are perhaps, just wanting to do a cycle or whatever.
Yeah.
And the majority of the classes are attended by ladies as well. So, and they are ladies of a certain age, a lot of whom are retired, and they make a morning of it. They'll sit in the brasserie afterwards and have coffee, and then perhaps they'll stay and have lunch. So
my ex-manager, an amazing lady over 70, I'm pretty sure she's coming here in the mornings because I can see her on my road.
Yeah.
And she was, very often she was saying that,
we have a lady in her 90s who comes regularly.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
But it's just the environment to come here. It's just so lovely. I mean, I can understand why everyone would like to come. It's just great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I wanted to speak with you about when you mentioned the decoration, because we know that each room is different decorated.
Yeah.
And it's all coming from you.
Yes.
You didn't have any background in interior design.
No.
It was just your
an
passion and
instinct
vision.
and passion.
I think so. I mean, when you stay in a hotel, you have several essential components which you expect. You expect an ensuite bathroom, you expect a nice comfortable bed, you expect clean bed linen, you expect in a hotel of our quality tea and coffee making facilities. But what you perhaps don't expect is you go into a room and you get a bit of a wow factor.
You do.
Because it's not the same as the last room you stayed in or a room you stayed in at another hotel, and perhaps it's got some nice wallpaper and some nice pictures on the wall, and it's got attractive curtains, and it's got just some individual features that make it a bit different.
That was the first thing that I noticed. I walked into the room and my first impression was, wow, this is amazing. It's so lovely. And just all the comforts, everything you think you might want. And for me, when I stay away, the first thing I do is I think, right, I need to iron this shirt. And I thought, is there an iron? And I opened the wardrobe. Good. Ironing board, and so I could make sure I look smart. So it's always important. So that everything you need is here, which is just what you want.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, we listen to our guests, and if guests say, actually, we can't do all of the things they ask for, of course not. But if guests are asking for something on a regular basis, not just in their rooms, but, generally, then we try to provide it.
Yeah, that becomes part of the standard.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, very much so. So we have then done 2 more developments. We built our brasserie was part of the spa, but we extended that by building Blaw's, which is another dining area which is attached to the brasserie, which links the far side of the hotel. So the link went through from the heritage suite, but we didn't have another link. Sometimes it was awkward because if we had a wedding or a function in the heritage suite and people were occupying the bar, it was awkward for people to have to walk through with suitcases. So we made sure there was another way that they could access the other side of the hotel. So we built that. Unfortunately, we built it during COVID. We started it prior to COVID, but then of course COVID hit. And of course the hotel was shut down. We had no income coming in, and again people said to me, Mandy, stop the building, put a stop to it, because you can't now carry on and fund that at the same time as funding the hotel, which we had to do because we got no grants in the first lockdown whatsoever. And I thought about this and I thought, that's not right, because then when at the point that the hotel reopens, when all this is over, people are going to be coming to a building site. Nobody wants to do that. No. When they're coming to a hotel, they don't want to come to a building site. We've got to finish this project.
It's actually the perfect time to do it because everyone's not...
It's the perfect time apart from financially.
Yeah, financially, and also to get the workers to come as well, because obviously they were under restrictions as well. So
exactly.
That made it harder.
And supplies, of course.
Yeah, supplies were limited.
Nobody could get plaster and plasterboard for love nor money.
And everything went up in cost. So all the costs for the budget, I guess, end up being a lot higher than what you were expecting.
A lot higher, yeah. Our project manager had to drive up to Manchester to get plasterboard. I mean, it was crazy. You couldn't get building supplies. Anyway, we finished the project and we reopened, obviously, in 2021. So then the last extension, which we've just finished, we have for years thought that we should be 4-star, not 3-star. And we gave up with the AA and the British Tourist Board and the RAC don't exist anymore. But your star rating has to come from an authorised body, and the only authorised body now that's left in the country is the AA.
Okay.
So you can't just apply for a 4-star status to anybody. It has to be an authorised body.
Yeah.
So we contacted the AA and said, look, we'd kind of like to subscribe to you again, but we want to be fairly guaranteed that if we do, you'll award us our 4-star status, because we've got everything on the books, like you have to have a lift, you have to do room service, you have to have a night porter, all of the physical things were in place.
Yeah.
We knew that our service standards and our food standards were good enough, but we had to have some assurance. So Mike had a contact in the AA and fostered that contact. He came to see us very kindly and gave us some advice. And he said, I am not going to be able to give you your 4-star status while ever your reception is where it is.
Oh.
Now, our reception was in the old part of the building, just behind where we're sitting now.
Yes.
And people used to come in the old front door.
Yes. That's how I remember coming the first time.
Exactly. And it was fine when we were a small hotel because it was quite homely and people quite liked it. But then as we developed, we outgrew it. It was also fine for one member of staff to sit on it and one computer and one lot of storage of everything. But we now had 2 members of staff who were crammed in, and we'd adapted the desk as much as we could. We had 2 workstations and it just wasn't big enough. And also people would come in to this side of the hotel, they would check in, they would register, and then be told that their room was all the way around the other side of the hotel. So they'd walked all the way around to get to reception. They had to walk all the way back again with their suitcases. So we knew that that's what we had to do. So last year we embarked on the new reception, which has just been completed. And we also built a brand new admin office behind, which has got 4 workstations in it. So we now have plenty of room for 2 girls to sit at the desk in comfort. The reception is right where you would expect it to be, at the front of the hotel. Yeah. It's also right in the middle of the hotel, so people can then go one way or the other, depending on where their rooms are. Yeah. And it's given us a lot more space. It's much nicer working environment for the girls, and it's perfect for the guest journey.
And so, it's a great guest journey because when you arrive, you check in, and then they take you to rooms and show you exactly where you're going. Yeah. And again, it's not like just go down here, go up the stairs and go there. You're actually taken to your room, and the experience is absolutely fabulous.
It's that personal service that people appreciate.
But here, everybody, you get that personal service from the waitress, the cleaners, every single member of staff.
I have members of staff who have worked for me one has worked for me for 24 years. I have other members of staff who have worked for over 20 years, and I have a lot of staff who have worked for over 10 years. And in hospitality, that is unheard of.
Well, it makes a difference, and again, it goes to show what a lovely experience is to work with you and Mike and the team.
I think people are invested in the hotel. They care about the hotel. Yeah. All of our heads of department have worked here either approaching or over 10 years, some for 15, some for over 20. And that shows, and they feed through the attitude that this is not just a job, this is a workplace, this is a family, this is where you belong, and people care for you.
That's very important, and it's one of the things we find, in industry and across business, that the best companies have the best culture, and that culture comes from great leadership skills and bringing people together and strengthening people all the time. And when you feel part of that team, no one ever wants to leave because they just feel like this is a great place. And that's the experience here.
Well, we hope so, because we certainly can't afford to pay the best wages, because in hospitality, being an independent business, times are very tough.
Yeah. Having the competitors in general, the big names, how you can see your hotel stay? Are they really big competition for you? Or?
I think what you have to understand with an independent business, and this goes across the board, not just in hospitality, is that if you have a big company, a chain of hotels, a chain of restaurants, a chain of supermarkets, whatever the business is, you have central resources. So you have central accounting, you have central managing, you have central purchasing, you have central supplies.
Yep.
With an independently owned and run business, all of those costs come off the bottom line. And that makes it extremely difficult to make your margins. And that's where, at the moment, we're finding it's very, very tough, because all of those costs for us have increased twofold, threefold: energy costs, supply costs, staffing costs going up by another 10% in April. And we can't offset that against the prices that we charge, especially when you're in an economic crisis, because cost of living for everybody now has rocketed. We're a luxury. What's the first thing people cut out when they are struggling to run their homes, run their families? They cut out their luxuries.
But if you can, and yeah, everyone likes, I mean, having this, as I said before, like this home from home experience. If you go into like the major sort of corporate hotels that are across the country, it's not the same experience. And obviously when you get something really nice, it's really desirable to go back, and you think, I really want to go back there because that's the place I wanted to be.
It is.
And you will always build up that core of guests, and they don't want to stay in these other places, because once you've stayed, particularly like a hotel like this, once you've stayed here, you don't want to stay anywhere else, because I think, well, that's,
Do you have plans to grow more?
I think we've probably just about reached the limits of where we can build. We had 4 acres to start with, plus another acre, which is now car parking. And I think in order to maintain nice gardens and good surroundings and spacious, because we do a lot of outside events as well in the summer. We do a lot of family events. You don't want the whole place to become just buildings. So I think we will always continue to reinvest. We will always be upgrading. We completed the refurbishment of 7 bedrooms last year. They've all been done now. I'm constantly decorating, upkeeping. We're constantly improving the grounds, the facilities, the services. We'll never stop doing that. But in terms of buildings, I think we've probably reached the limit.
No, that's amazing. Well, Mandy, thank you. It's been really interesting to hear the whole story. It's fascinating,
and
isn't it?
Inspirational.
Very inspirational.
No, passing through this place. And yeah, you are a great example of how you had only vision that you want to be with your family, and I'm absolutely fascinated of that, how gradually you were coming with idea after idea, nice and slowly, what you want to achieve. And I think we show a great example that when you're determined to achieve, you always find a way, and it will.
And learn from people too. Learn from people who have had similar experiences. Always listen, always talk to people, always gain their experience as well.
Yeah.
The best thing. Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
My great pleasure.
And hopefully we'll see you again at some point.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Well, we hope you've really enjoyed today's episode here at Hempstead House. It's been a pleasure to interview Mandy, and we've had great fun doing it, and I think we've all learnt a lot. Also, we really ask, if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe to our channels on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, you can follow us. Also, please do like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And we really hope that you would follow us in the future, and we look forward to welcoming you to another interview very soon. Thanks for watching.